All right, so this is going to be another bad movie review. This is going to be on Catwoman. It's easily for me one of the worst superhero movies of all time, at least that I've seen. Um, it's really really bad, but whatever. It's directed by Pitoff, and so the story. Patience Phillips, played by Holly Berry. No, not Selena Kyle. This is a completely different person. She works at like this advertising company or this, she's part of like the marketing campaign for this company, and she's really clumsy and runs into people and stuff like that. She's supposed to be like a loser character. It's definitely a trope at this point when it comes to even at this point when it comes to superhero movies, because the Batman movies have done it multiple times at this point. Even when this movie came out, where usually the villain is kind of a loser, and so when they get their powers, they become a villain. They have more confidence and things like that. So they're doing that with this too. Only Catwoman is the main character, so it's happening with the protagonist in this one. So she's wearing this really ugly outfit, knowing that she works for this kind of like this fashion company or whatever. And it's really just so that she could be at a really low point, so she can rise when she becomes Catwoman, and so that there's a reason for her boss to be such an asshole to her. So her boss, George Adair, played by Lambert Wilson, uh, he's an asshole to her, like I said, and he wants her to redo this design, even though she did it in the way that he wanted her to do it. So she has to redo it and then bring it before midnight the next day to some other place. I guess she was supposed to give it to somebody, and they were supposed to bring it there, but she had to do it herself. Some facility that they have, and just in the middle of the night, she has to go drop it off there. But before that, she meets Benjamin Bratt's character, Tom Lone, who's a cop, because she's hanging out outside of her window on her ledge because she was trying to save this random cat, and the cat disappears. And so he assumes that she's just committing suicide, so he saves her. But she drops her wallet, so he follows her. Well, first he goes to work, I guess, and Googles the art that was in her apartment, and then goes to give it to her, whatever. And so you have to deal with her friends at her work. One of them is a gay stereotype, an over the top gay stereotype. And one of them is her friend that just says nothing but sexual stuff, just constantly. And that's her whole character.
Detective Long. Tom Long.
God, that is such a good name. Tom Lone. Rhymes with cone, phone, bone. Not that rhyming's all that important.
Like I said, Patience Phillips, she has to go to this other facility, whatever, drop off her designs. She goes in there. This is a restricted area, but they didn't lock the door. She goes in there and she sees, she overhears a scientist and the rest of them talking about their makeup line that they have. Um, that they're, I guess it's in like the pre-production or whatever's going on. Like they haven't actually gotten it out there to market or whatever yet. They've just had like the studies, and they've noticed that it's ruining women's skin and it's giving them headaches and stuff like that, and they get sick later on. Patients, her friend that's always talking about sex, she ends up getting sick because she's been taking it. Somehow she got it early. So they hear her because she has to run into something because she's a klutz. And so this fashion company or whatever, this company that's putting out makeup, is just that villainous that they have armed guards chase after her and try to kill her because she overhears them. It's so ridiculous. They just needed a plot, pretty much. They just needed a villain. So they chase her and they kill her by shutting her into this. She goes into this little sewer system, and they turn it on, and so she like flies through the through the sewer pipes, and that's how she dies. So some cats that look terrible, they go over to her, they breathe life into her, she comes back to life, and now she has like cat powers. I mean, she wakes up. They're so heavy handed with this. She wakes up, and she's already like on one of her shelves instead of in the bed. So they're already starting with that. And I think she even like jumps really high up to like a ledge before that too. So they're already kind of doing that like right off the bat. So she goes to see this lady Ophelia Powers because the cat that she saved, that's also there now, had like a tag that would lead to her. Ophelia Powers is a terrible name. That's stupid even for comic books, but whatever. um, She goes to talk to her. She's a crazy cat lady. She kind of lets her know some things, but not completely yet. Like I said, the friend goes to the hospital because of the makeup. And at that point, it's really just her getting used to her powers and like figuring out what's going on with her. Uh, she's hissing at dogs and doing all kinds of other stuff. It's really bad and it's really embarrassing for Holly Berry. Like, she gets to the point where she like cuts her hair and does all this and puts on this leather outfit that was kind of set up earlier. And she takes on some robbers and things like that. She steals some jewelry because that's part of the character. She's a cat burglar. But then she just gives the jewelry back because they still want her to be a hero. And she goes back to Ophelia Powers and learns about there's been Catwomen all through society, and she died, and so the cat brought her back to life. The cat saw her future, and that's why the cat tested her to see if she would go out to the ledge to save it. It's stupid, and that's why they ended up giving her the cat essence, or whatever whatever the fuck. It's so dumb. So she has to kind of embrace her cat at that point. But she does eventually put on the Catwoman outfit and things like that. And she goes after the guy that killed her. And that's how she finds out about the makeup and all this other stuff. So she goes after her boss. What was her name? George. Um, and she meets up with Sharon Stone's character, Laurel. That's his wife that he's blatantly cheating on. And so she points her towards him, but then, she's not able to get in because Benjamin Bratt and the rest of the cops stop her from doing that. But then Sharon Stone's character actually kills him, and she's the one who's actually behind it all, which was shown in the beginning, but I guess there was a reveal there. And Sharon Stone's the main villain, and the way that she's able to fight her is because she's been using the makeup, but she keeps using it so that her body is really tough now. Her skin is really tough, and she also has like increased strength too, because she like crushes that glass, and then she picks up a pole and hits her with it later on. It's ridiculous, but she's the one that's been kind of because that's why the police have been going after Holly Berry, is because she killed the scientist and she also killed her husband to blame it on Catwoman. At a certain point, Benjamin Bratt, Tom Lone, they've been going on dates and things. He's been suspecting her kind of, but he gets enough proof to prove that she is Catwoman, so she goes to jail. But she then has to get out of jail and then go after Sharon Stone, right? To stop her with the evil deeds or the evil plan that she has going on with the makeup. So she goes there, they get into a really bad fight, and that's pretty much it. I mean, she sneaks out of jail in a really cartoonish way to go there to fight her, right? And apparently, I guess they never looked at the cell to find out that she wasn't there, because after that, Benjamin Bratt is like, if you go back to that cell, it'll be really hard to prove that you're Catwoman. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess they didn't look in that cell. I mean, it's stupid. There's so much of this movie that doesn't make sense. Positives. Benjamin Bratt, I thought he was actually really good. Like, I kind of like this character. It's ridiculous because he's in every situation. Like, he pops up at everything. He's always the cop that they call. Right? I don't know if he's on homicide or if he's on what desk he's part of or whatever, but it seems like he's just always there. Right? It's ridiculous, but he is actually pretty good. And when they're not doing the ridiculous cat stuff, they actually do have chemistry. Patience and Kamala and Benjamin Bratt and Holly Berry, there is a little bit there. Even early on when she's being all mousy and like innocent and won't speak up, he is kind of charming in a way while he's talking to her. So there was a little bit there. The performances I thought were bad, but at least the actors are trying, right? Like Holly Berry is ridiculous in this, like when it gets to the point where you're hissing at dogs, you're scarfing down sushi, when you're doing all this nonsense, it's crazy. But she does commit to it, right? Like she showed up to work, right? She's a professional. I mean, because it gets to the point in this movie where it's like, I know that she has cat powers or whatever, but how far are you taking this shit?
What can I do for you?
White Russian. No ice. Hold the vodka. Hold the Kahlua.
Cream. Straight up.
So yeah, we're out of positives now. We're negatives. So it's the whole movie pretty much. But the cinematography is bad. Like there's some really bad establishing shots of like the buildings and things like that. But that aside, I mean, even just like the lighting and things on certain things. I mean, the movie's just ugly. I mean, characters, their skin will have like this glossy look to it, and it's just ugly and off putting to me. Just watching it, and it's been like that ever since I first saw this movie as a kid. I thought they were doing something with it because you can really tell on Sharon Stone. And so I'm thinking, okay, she's using the makeup that has, I guess, special whatever in it that's giving her like power and messes up people's skin, stuff like that. So maybe they're doing that to really show her skin, the difference in her skin because of the makeup. But then there are other characters that have that too. I mean, that's just the way that they decided to do this, and it's ugly, right? Like Catwoman goes to see Ophelia Powers, and she has that weird glossy look to her skin too. So it's not because of that. It's just that the movie is just ugly. I mean, that's just what it is. The editing is really bad. There's the earlier scene where she takes on those burglars, where it's just cutting constantly, and the CG is terrible. You can't really get a feel for a lot of the action because of the endless cuts, because of how bad the choreography is, how bad the CG is. I guess they're trying to hide it with all these cuts, and they can't. It's ugly. Right? It doesn't look good. It's not a very fun scene. It's none of the action scenes are good. None of them. And on top of that, they have really bad, like really forced music over. Like the soundtrack is it's too much, right? And it's clearly because the protagonist is a black woman. You have certain superheroes or black superheroes, a lot of them, where there has to be rap music in the background, like with Miles Morales and stuff like that. So here we have a black woman, so we got like a female hip hop group or something, and it's so bad. Like especially during the basketball scene where they're just all over each other. Tom Lone and Patience, they're all over each other, and these kids are just cheering them on the side. It's like, really, you're not paying attention to the kids being there at all? Huh? Okay, well, all right. I mean, it's so cringy, especially with the music, and it was really hard to watch. It's one of those scenes that's like it's one of the worst. But even with the final fight scene too, also has some really bad dialogue, bad reaction shots of Catwoman, and it just has that really bad music over it. It's so terrible. It's really bad. So the movie is kind of all over the place, right? Clearly feels like it's just kind of thrown together. They didn't really know what they were doing because it takes so much time with her getting used to her powers and like figuring out about all the past Catwomen and the cats that have been around throughout history and all these different pictures and things Ophelia Powers is showing her, and all these other things that's going on. Her taking on this bar that I guess is across the street from an apartment complex. Like, it seemed like it was part of another apartment complex. It was weird. It seemed like it was just another apartment. They were just having a party, but then she goes in there, and it's a bar. Like it even has bar on the wall. Did he turn his apartment into a bar? I guess. It's weird. It's weird. And that they would be making that much noise in the middle of the night. And she's the only one that's disturbed by it. Nobody else has been over there like, hey, I'm trying to sleep. Like, what? You guys are making a lot of noise. I guess it's just her. Whatever. But they spend so much time on that then it's finally like, oh yeah, we have a plot going on with the makeup company or whatever that's almost like full on organized crime but with makeup. Let's go ahead and deal with that. It's like it has a really weird structure to it like that where it's like, oh yeah, we have a plot, I guess. It's so silly. And they have this whole thing with Sharon Stone where it seems like it's a reveal, like it seems like it's a twist, like, oh no, she's the one that's really behind it. And it's pretty obvious because you saw her right at the beginning talking to the scientists and all that. It's like, well, what's the point of all that then?
I can live with it being addictive, but these side effects from the long-term studies.
That won't happen if they keep using it. And we'll make sure they do. Because that's where the money comes from.
I'm not sure anymore.
Like they have the husband character, and he seems to be like a red herring where it's like, oh, he treats her like shit. I mean, he dogs her out in front of everybody. I mean, she kind of gets digs back at him too because they're clearly in just like a failed marriage. And for whatever reason, I guess they're still together, even though he's blatantly cheating on her. But he's cheating on her with the new model, right? Like the new younger model. Like, oh yeah, he traded her in for a new one, right? Like, and even with her, he treats her like shit. Like when they're at that show or whatever, and he's like, oh, well, why are you talking? Or something like that. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't talk or you shouldn't think or something like that. It's clear that they're going out of their way to make him as villainous as possible. And it's like, I know it's Sharon Stone. I know it's her. All right. He was not in that scene earlier in the beginning, so it's not even like they're working together and they don't get along anyway. It's clearly that it's her. But whatever. I guess they just decided to do that. I don't know. And then they have the whole thing with the friend, and it's like, okay, well, you have this friend that's using the makeup, but she's not getting like special powers. As a matter of fact, she gets sick while she's still using the makeup. But they established that the makeup only gets you sick after you stop using it, so you have to keep using it. It doesn't make sense. That character feels like she doesn't even need to be there because it feels like that like they have the friend go through it, so there's a motivation for Catwoman to go after them, but that's not her motivation. She goes after them because one of the guys killed her, and then the person that told him to do it, she's going after them, and that happens to be the company and that's why she's taking them out and taking them down. So you don't really need the friend, and like I said, she's really only there to just be like overtly sexual with every line of dialogue. It's crazy.
Hey, Upside, you gotta see my doctor.
Okay, I can see you're feeling better.
Reminds me, what's up with the hot yet modest, but who cares because he's so hot detective?
At a certain point, it's kind of weird that Benjamin Bratt is even taking this long to find out that she's Catwoman, because she might as well have it on her forehead, right? Like she's scarfing down the sushi on their dates, and there's that thing on the Ferris wheel that it breaks, and then she's able to just save the boy. Like he may not have seen all of that, but like at a certain point, it's like this is not adding up, right? Like this is seeming kind of weird. And then they have this scene where they just hooked up or whatever. He finds Catwoman's claw, and it's like, okay, well she's Catwoman, but no, he still has to go back because there's little things that he's doing at the precinct where he's comparing their handwriting and stuff like that. But he compares because she licks him on the cheek, and so he does like a DNA test to match it. And it's like, well, you don't need both of those. You could probably just have one. Like you could probably just get rid of that scene where he finds the claw and just have because she licked him or whatever. That was the setup for that. You could just have that. Like you don't need both, right? Like this movie, it's short, but it feels so long because of things like that. It's like I don't need that. That was unnecessary, right? Like I don't know. Also, it has such terrible dialogue. I mean, he's like he asked one of the dudes. He didn't have a partner, so it's just another guy that I guess is another detective, and he's like, "Would your wife climb on a ledge to save a stray cat?" And he's like, "Yeah, if he had a pizza." I was like, I guess that's supposed to be funny. There's plenty of moments with Catwoman where where she like has these little lines or whatever, and it's like like she's fighting with Benjamin Bratt. There's like an electrical thing. It's at that play or whatever. There's an electrical cord next to them. And she's like, I knew there was a spark between us. I was like, man, you guys are really forcing this shit. I mean, there's so many really bad lines in this.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Sorry's not nearly enough.
Okay. Then let me try the remix.
Oh man, you're killing people. I mean, it really does feel like a full-on organized crime. Like we're watching the Batman or whatever. Like it's crazy how far they're going, right? Where there are people like the scientists and stuff like that are like, this is bad. I mean, it's giving people superpowers, right? Like just so that you can have that fight at the end, which is terrible anyway. And it's like, what's in this fucking makeup, right? Like, how are you getting away with even putting this out there, right? Doesn't this have to go through like some kind of approval process or something like that? Because it seems like they're just ready to go, and it's like, you know what? Fuck the side effects. It's like at a certain point, you're gonna have liability over that when enough people start getting sick. You can't just rely on them all to keep using it. And Sharon Stone seems to just not even give a shit. Like, what is she doing? Like, at a certain point, she shoots Benjamin Bratt. You're just gonna shoot a cop? Like, how far does this go? How far are you taking this? I mean, none of this makes any goddamn sense. And it's embarrassing for everybody involved, man. Halle Berry with these moments of her being a cat. Like, fuck, it's so bad. It really does have the feeling of just being thrown together. This is when superhero movies just didn't give a damn. I mean, well, studios didn't give a damn when it came to superhero movies. It's just thrown out there, man. It's thrown out there. Like, I don't want to see a Catwoman movie without it being Selena Kyle anyway, but like, yeah, who the fuck is Patience Phillips? Anyway, like the whole thing where I think they said there was some kind of cat god or whatever that was being passed down to all these cat women too, or something, along with the cat breath. I don't know. It's stupid. This is a bad movie. I'm sorry. And it's really big of Holly Berry to like accept the Razzie and stuff like that. Because I mean, it feels like that was her way of being like, I got to get some of my pride back, right? Like I have to be able to like, because the embarrassment. I mean, the movie is just bad. I mean, that's just what it is. But like, what she specifically has to do, yeah. Like when she jumps out of that bad CG once again. When she jumps out of that, she gets out of jail and she jumps out of the window and she does like this move or whatever. She lands on her feet because she's a cat. And then there's a certain kind of car. I forgot what car that is, but it has like a cat or whatever the hell on the on the front of the car. I forgot what kind of car that is. I can't think of it right now. But she starts stroking it just simply because it's a cat, I guess. Just starts stroking it as the guy is just like getting out of the car, like what the fuck's going on? And then she takes the guy's car. Like, uh yeah, it's embarrassing. I'm gonna give this complete shit. It's easily one of the worst superhero movies. It really is. Not only is it embarrassing for the people involved, I was embarrassed watching it, especially with those these little needle drop moments with this awful music and it's not good. It's really really not good. But anyway, that's Catwoman, and we're done.